Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with season 9, episode 49 of our weekly Q&A videos. It's a video, it's also a podcast, I guess. Most people watch this on the video format, which is why we say that first and foremost.
And when you say most, I mean the difference. I feel like the numbers are so low that I don't know the difference is that significant. Because I get the impression that the podcast people listen to more of it. And I mean, I could be wrong.
That's true. They're the real fans.
That's not what I'm saying, but there's a difference. I mean, the raw numbers on YouTube, I think it overestimates the people who are listening. Because if you stopped and you started again, does that
I think that's 2 views. Yeah, I think it's 30
views.
seconds in one listen. I think if there's a refresh involved, then that
right.
counts as a second view.
And I think the podcast, they count it just once when somebody downloads it on their device, and then they can just listen to it as many times. So I feel like it's probably pretty close in terms of the number of people actually.
So you think our views on YouTube are just like five folks who like watch 30 seconds, lose focus, and then come back later before they watch 2 minutes of it over the course of four sessions, and then they give up?
Maybe not 5, because if it was 5, it would be worse than the podcast. I'm thinking maybe about 15.
Okay.
20 at the most. I feel like that there's maybe that many people who are actually not accidentally clicking on. You know when you have a whole list of stuff, or when it automatically goes to the next video.
How often are you accidentally clicking on a YouTube video, man?
I don't know. Like, or I'm thinking more along the lines of watching inadvertently. I think not so much the clicking. That was probably poor choice of words. But you know when you're watching something and you don't have
that we've tricked them somehow.
And that you don't stop the video. A lot of people have it on the setting where it just goes to the next one automatically.
Do a lot? I don't. Are you saying that? Because I don't think that's true. I turned that off.
I never did.
What's a lot of people? Is a lot of people you? Do you have any sense of anybody else?
I think 10 people.
You think just everybody who watches us? Because I turned that off. Do you keep that on?
I think I have. I can't remember. I usually just try to stop stuff.
Where are you getting a lot of people from though? Did you just make up a guy in your head?
I'm extrapolating my own experience to other people, and it's a small.
But you don't even
number.
know if you have it on. You might not have it on.
I don't.
So that would be 0 people then, not a single person, from our sample size of 2.
Just let me have my little.
I almost want you to check.
Just have my little delusions and my world views, beliefs, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I think the problem is that you're selling yourself short. A lot of people, there's the idea that most people think that they're better than average, which just doesn't work mathematically.
Yeah, well, everybody thinks their IQ is over 100.
Most people think they're better than average at most things.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that like success actually correlates with having these sort of positive, inflated sense of self. So that it's actually a little bit good. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy for your own success.
But I know a lot of people who have expertise who have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know whether that's because my own experience is skewed or that's actually representative of, the general population.
I think there's is it called it's not Bader-Meinhof, that's something else. But there's the idea that the more you know about something, the less confident you are about that topic.
The opposite of Dunning-Kruger.
That curve. It's the Dunning-Kruger, yeah. But a lot of people misuse the Dunning-Kruger when they apply it. But so the idea that, like, because I think the reason why you have imposter syndrome is that if you're an expert at something, you're surrounded, but you also know all the other experts.
Right.
So you're in a situation where you can very easily look at sort of other people who know as much or more than you about the thing because you know all of them. Whereas if you know nothing, I know like 0 like astrophysicists. So if I know a little bit about astrophysics, I'm like, I know more about astrophysics than like everybody I'm around because everybody else knows nothing about it. And then if you're like, an astrophysicist, you're like, every single person is an astrophysicist. They only talk to astrophysicists. So I know like, I don't know, maybe an average amount about it. Right. So it's kind of just like, that's your brain tricks you because it thinks that the people around you are all the people everywhere, which is why you think that everybody's got autoplay on because you think you might have autoplay on, but you don't even know because you don't really watch YouTube.
I remember I've been annoyed a couple of times where stuff would go on. I was, trying to, maybe it was looking at the comments and then it went to the next video and then I lost the comments.
My hypothesis is, if you can remember being annoyed multiple times, one of those times you'll have clicked the button, the prominent button to turn off autoplay.
I might have.
And if you didn't, I'm a little concerned for you. That you're like, that sucks. I hate it. I don't want that to happen again. And then you just do nothing about it when there's like a really easy sort of button to click.
You know what's easier? Walking away from the computer.
That's true. You know, I just turn off I just stop using electronic devices when they annoy me.
That's it.
I just turn them off and they're done. My ebook ran out of power one time and it was too much of a pain in the ass to plug it in. It's gone. It's dead to me now.
So let me try to bring it back around to Injustice.
Okay.
So what you're watching now is footage for this week's challenge, which is Dawn of Justice Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're seeing is the latest iteration, because it's an interesting sort of task I've set in the last few months to try to make the background footage. It didn't always used to be like this. I mean, for people who are only watching us recently, we used to have a special team that nobody else was really using. It was Regime Green Lantern, Containment Doomsday, who we like to call Pickle Suit Doomsday because he looks like a pickle in a suit.
Yeah, he's big and green.
And Elseworld Flash. And the reason why that team was so good, historically, we didn't used to actually do the footage earlier. We used to do the footage as we were talking.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, when you have a team that requires thinking, asking and answering questions is not that easy.
The quality of content goes down a lot. And then every once in a while, you'd be like, okay, wait. Let me just focus up a little bit or I'm going to lose here.
Yeah, because I hate losing. But that team...
And then I was just listening to our labored breathing while I vamped.
What was great about that team was you could win pretty easily with not a lot of thinking, because they weren't the highest level. You wouldn't get the max points, so you wouldn't see the Astro Harness all that often. Very, very rarely would you see an opponent's team that had a lot of synergy. And it was one of those teams where you could just swipe mindlessly, because Elseworld Flash is great for that. Containment Doomsday is also great for that. And every once in a while, you build up enough power, you do your special, and you could be successful without thinking too much. Mm-hmm. But making these teams, the interesting thing is trying to do something with them that is interesting and successful. So when I first wanted to do a Dawn of Justice Superman team, I thought, okay, who are my teammates? We'll make a Dawn of Justice team, because they were all released around the same time with the same update. They are thematically and in the same relevant. They're in the same universe. It's all just kind of cool. Mm-hmm. The problem is Dawn of Justice Wonder Woman is kind of crap. And the reason why I say that is because they both came around the same time. They both have a passive where they use up their power to do stuff for their teammates. Mm-hmm. Dawn of Justice Wonder Woman gives her teammates health for half the health, I think, for how much damage she does. New 52 Wonder Woman gives power. Mm-hmm. And so anytime there's a defensive passive, I'm going to pick the offensive choice instead.
Yeah.
And so this is what you're seeing is New 52 Wonder Woman, because Dawn of Justice Superman can get plenty of power from New 52 Wonder Woman, whereas the other way around, if you make Dawn of Justice Superman your specialist, he's kind of... It limits the choices for an effective teammate.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal. So that's why you're seeing this team. It's pretty good, yeah. It's a lot of fun. The fact that he can do gear shattering is kind of neat.
Good stuff.
And I guess the one thing is, we talked about this in the recap, but when you stack it with Claw of Horus, it makes it a little bit easier to strip all the gears off the teammates.
Yeah.
And the timing is just right so that even if you don't knock down the opponent, if it's not unblocked, the timing is not bad, so that even though he's not a Suicide Squad team and you only get 3 skulls from Enchantress, when you hold your block and let them do a quick combo, as soon as they finish the combo, don't even wait, do your special one again, and that's usually enough to get the timing just right for the skulls to hit just as your special hits, to get all the effects of Claw of Horus again.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, maybe moving into the first comment this week.
Yes.
This is a comment from Cameron107 in dialogue with our discussion yesterday about substance use a little bit.
Yesterday.
Last episode.
Right.
Yeah, my bad. They say, as someone who has worked at a homeless shelter before, I can tell you that people with addiction problems are hardly ever at fault for their situations. It's almost always someone with a disability, severe mental health problems, or they're victims of domestic abuse or sexual assault, and they just couldn't handle it anymore. The stereotype of the high school kid who partied way too hard and couldn't stop doesn't happen nearly as often as schools and their anti-drug campaigns would have you believe. And it sucks because all that fear-mongering is what leads everyone to label homeless people as failures who should have tried harder, etc., which is really unfair.
Okay, I'm actually gonna. I love the comment. I
Yeah.
think it's nice to bring some of your personal experience, because the way you change people's minds sometimes, or affect change, is through personal stories.
Yeah, and you know, Cameron here is speaking as someone with an above average exposure to people who have been addicts, right? The best person to speak on this is somebody who is an addict, right? Because they know their story the best. Mm-hmm. And the second best person is someone, you know, who has had kind, humane human interaction with these people and been able to sort of get to know people outside of the sort of social narratives that we construct about sort of categories and classes of people.
And I think that's that qualifier you add is important, right? That they have, that they're, when they have these interactions, they're open-minded, because I think part of the stigma is also a fear. It's not even just blaming them for being responsible for their situation, but just being scared of them when you meet them and not being open to consider them as human beings. Yeah. I will go one step further even, right? Because the one issue I have, I think, is the at fault. Because I don't think it even matters. When you sort of play into the dialogue of the people who want to there's a word for it, like it's an awkward kind of phrasing where you otherize, alienate, not even so much alienate, but make them the alien, right? Yeah. It's a science fiction term, I think. I can't even remember who did this, but there was a way of talking about how a lot of the stories in conflict come from othering, like dehumanization. Right, exactly. And so it's neat if you can say, well, people with addiction, they're not at fault, but I'll go one step further and say, even if it is their fault, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, and it doesn't matter. When you look at other things like health problems, right? Yeah. Does anybody ever live a blameless life where they're eating exactly the right thing, they're getting exactly the right amount of exercise, they're sleeping as many hours as they should be, and they're doing everything perfectly, so they're not doing anything? I mean, we're seeing this now with the more recent Canadian recommendations about alcohol use. Yeah. And instead of 15 drinks a week for an average-sized male and 10 drinks a week for an average-sized female, they're saying anything over 2 drinks a week, you are significantly increasing your risk of cancers, heart disease, or stroke, not heart disease, stroke. So that, 2 drinks or less, maybe 1 in 1,000 risk. You start going higher than that, it's like 1 in 100 risk that you're giving yourself. And then there's the idea of white matter loss, demyelination. So one of the interesting things with binge drinking is there's a lot of stuff where when you do something, there's the idea of averages, but then also like distribution curves, what are called bell curves. The idea where they're big in the center, where most people are, and they taper off towards the edges. And so when you're looking at the differences between groups, there's 2 ways you can look at them. You can look at just the differences in average, but then if you sort of look at the images of bell curves, a lot of times when there's differences in averages, there's still a huge amount of overlap, right? There's a joke there. You know what the joke is, right? Have you heard this? No, I haven't heard the joke. So that when you are demyelinating and potentially killing brain cells, that what you're doing is, it's like when the predators are hunting a herd, what they kill are the weakest. Oh. So then what it does is the best ones. So only the best ones survive, so your average is actually better. That's funny. From the drinking, so you end up smarter. That's pretty funny. But so the important part is that, a lot of times when you look at like differences between groups, they're pretty close together. Right. And there's a lot of overlap. They're big, sort of wide bell curves. So if you look at the differences between male and female, right? And I'm talking specifically about like chromosomal sex here. There are sort of average differences. You've got different like hormone cocktails. There's differences on average, but there's a huge amount of overlap. So if you're just a dude, right? If you're just a random person from either group, unless you're at one of the really extreme ends, it's really hard to say, from any sort of performance on almost any metric, whether like an individual to predict it before one or the other. Yeah. And when they're really thin, when there's everybody's sort of in the same range, it's a really narrow range. Yeah. It becomes really easy to predict who belongs to what group.
So if there's not a lot of overlap, even if there's only a really small difference, in performance, you say, you know, oh, this person did this well. Unless they're in like the top 1% of this group, they're probably in that. And so apparently with binge drinking, there's a really sharp curve, and there's not a lot of overlap in the amount of white matter myelination, where you can demyelination. Okay. So it's really easy to tell if somebody has ever binge drank. And obviously, you know, it's hard because people are people. So if somebody's done it once, they've probably done it more than once. It's probably very rare to find somebody who's done it exactly one time. You know, like they drank one time, like it was their last night on Earth, and then after that they said, I'm never gonna drink that much again, and then they never did. But that apparently, if you try to compare those groups, that it's like binge drinking seems to. And the other issue that you run into is causation, right? Does binge drinking one time
or causation
drop it?
Or were they more likely to binge drink because they've got the demyelination already?
Or is it both, right? But so, you know, and usually the answer is that it's at least a little bit of both, right? It's not normally just one or just the other. But as it turns out, you know, binge drinking it makes a noticeable, like, chunk out of how much white matter you have in a way that makes it pretty easy to actually, like, tell.
Oh, that was it. There's the binge drinking right there.
Yeah.
Before we finish with this too, a different thought had occurred to me about because while I agree that Cameron is making a really good point about that, right? That they don't deserve, people who are homeless don't deserve that kind of, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for.
Stigma, blame.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. And I think when we give into that kind of argument, I think we're conceding a rhetorical point that's not necessary. And the analogy that just popped to mind was, it's like abortion, where there can be people that are pro-choice, and they are happy to support access to abortion. So they're happy to say that they are pro-abortion access. But then even within that group, if you have a discussion with them, some of them are uncomfortable saying that they are pro-abortion. And I think, and it's totally legitimate. I don't have a problem with when people feel like that, but I'm happier to push back against that, where people are unwilling to use it. I'm totally willing to say I'm pro-abortion. Same way I feel like I've said this a bunch of times before. I'm pro-appendectomy. I'm totally pro-appendectomy.
You're pro-abortion as healthcare, because it is healthcare.
So
you don't think you're not pro-forced abortion.
Right, and I'm not pro-forced appendectomy or pro-forced chemotherapy either.
You're not going to be like like advertising campaign that abortions are really cool.
Right, exactly.
But you're pro people getting access to the healthcare they need.
Right. So when the argument is being framed by anti-choice people or pro-forced birth people, to say that to somehow make you embarrassed about saying that you're pro-abortion, I don't have that problem. Because I think the point that I'm not willing to concede is to let people somehow pretend that that's not healthcare. And by sticking to that point, I feel like I'm grounding it more in the fact that, okay, same as homeless people, you're homeless, even if you were to blame for it.
What does that even mean?
So that, you know, because there's so many health problems that are associated with behavioral risk factors, that there's a certain hypocrisy there if you're only willing to pick those specific behaviors in other people, and you're totally willing to ignore your own in order to say, hey, I'm still a good person. These people, however, deserve what they got.
If somebody gets cancer, you don't say, too bad, loser, shouldn't have had so much processed meat. Right? You knew it was bad. The studies were out.
It's too bad you didn't exercise enough or get enough sleep. Or I think there's a complete lack of empathy there that I don't want to... I mean, listen, I think there's a tendency for all of us wanting a just world, like having a just world framework where we wanted to think, okay, it's not going to happen to me because I do these other things right. I totally get that. I totally get the fear of a random universe that can just drop a piano on you at any given moment where you feel like you don't deserve it. I mean, that's the whole idea of heaven and hell, right? Where there's some sort of, that even if there's no balancing the scales of justice while you're live.
There's some sort of balancing sheet somewhere.
Right. I mean, that's why the idea of heaven and hell is so attractive to some people, and so is karma.
Mm-hmm.
That I get that. I just I'm trying to make a conscious choice or conscious decision not to subscribe to that idea.
And I think for what it's worth, everything we've seen from Cameron is that they are a kind, considerate, sort of accepting and open-minded person.
Right.
So I'm sure that level of nuance is very hard to get across in a comment.
Yeah.
And so this is more of sort of an idea generally, and I would like to think that Cameron would agree with the broader point of it. And also I think that whether or not we want to move beyond the idea of needing people to be at fault, I think it's still an important thing to say.
Yeah.
Because I think, unfortunately, right, it would be great to just be able to say, you know, on a moral level, who cares? But at the end of the day, you do need to convince the people who are who
for some people it really does matter.
Fault. Yeah.
For some people it really does matter.
For, you know, it's in part you're a little bit conceding to talk about it on their terms when you're trying to say whose fault is this.
Yeah.
But on another level, if you can talk about it on their terms and still prove them wrong, that's also exceptionally valuable. There's an important value that serves in the conversation.
I don't want it to sound like in any way that I'm criticizing Cameron, because I'm not. What I'm trying to do is point out that I'm actually probably a little bit more radical.
Yeah.
Is the point I'm willing to make.
Then the literal words down here in the page, whether or not that's, you know, Cameron's like most nuanced innermost thought. And I think that's also the thing is that, like, you know, I like this comment a lot. I like what it says.
I do. This is why I totally agree with it. I totally agree with every point that's being made. Mm-hmm. I think it's absolutely right.
You go, they're not at fault. I also don't care if they are.
Right, exactly.
You're yes anding it. You're not.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing at all.
Yeah. There we go. Good stuff. Always. Cameron's comments are often very insightful and give us some good stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
And are often in conversation with us in a way that I find pretty
I want to say I appreciate Cameron's contribution to the comments.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our next comment comes from Lachy, Lachy, impossible to say.
Yeah. It feels like it should be an Anglo name because the Smith is the surname.
But
it's not something that I recognize.
Leahy?
Leahy would that be Lahey?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Leahy Smith.
And if you break it down, like, the language is so interesting, right? There's so many different words where you can. I saw John Scalzi used to have a cat named Fluffy, but instead of Fluffy, he used Phlagh, something like that. All like different ways that you can make the noises.
It's like the way that people name children Michaela, and they decide that they're gonna they take it as like a creative spelling prompt,
right?
But it's a lot more acceptable because you're naming a cat that, not a person who has to either change their name or tell everybody how to spell their name for the rest of their life. Because
your gut reaction to pronounce it was you had two sort of instincts. Take away the L. What word is that?
Ashy?
No, achy.
Achy.
But you wouldn't have said lakey, right? But it could be.
Probably not.
I'm just saying. So it's language is such an interesting thing, and it's predicated on a lot of assumptions about the sort of root language, and then the sort of the conventions of that language too. And I don't recognize it. Yeah. Which is the hard part.
And then you run into the whole anglicization, right? Where we're looking at things in a specific alphabet and with a specific framing. I knew somebody whose last name was Joe, and they were Chinese, and it was just because it got transcribed really poorly. I forget what their last name even was. Yeah.
Joe. Okay. Yeah.
But they just when their family was coming to Canada, however many generations ago, it just got written down like that, and so it just looked like
okay.
They had what looked like two first names, right? Because their last name was Joe.
Right.
And then it was just totally
along those lines. Just finished a really great book. It's by R.F. Kuang, and it's called Babel. It's science fiction / fantasy. It was just released last year. It's gotten lots of positive attention. Just finished it. Really like it. What made me think of that was when you mentioned the Joe and Joe.
Yeah.
About how it really addresses colonialism in an interesting way, in the context of a whole sort of different magic system. I don't know. It was just I just finished it today, literally. So I've got to process a little bit of it to figure out how I feel about it. I enjoyed it a lot. And it's just
piece of media is usually pretty good when you finish it and you go, I need to think about this before I think I can talk about it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of media that you finish it and you say, I know exactly how I feel about this.
Yeah.
And if part of your media consumption is you're sort of turning it over in your head after it's done, that's usually a sign that it's pretty good.
Yeah. It absolutely was. Totally
Yeah.
recommend it. I feel like it's a huge progression from because same author wrote the Poppy War, Dragon Republic, and I can't remember the last book in the trilogy. And it was okay. It was really good, actually, for what it was, which was, to me, an interesting kind of representation in fantasy that I normally don't see.
Yeah.
It was not... The point of comparison I had with that was the Green Bone Saga, which I loved, which came around maybe around the same time. I think Green Bone Saga might have started 1 year earlier.
Yeah.
Also representation, and both good. I felt like I connected better with Green Bone Saga, but Babel, holy moly, that was like
on another level.
Yeah, it was totally on another level.
It's almost unfair. There's so much good stuff around that when something does a simple thing well, it's hard for it to stick in your head because there's so much stuff that does really complicated, weird, interesting stuff exceptionally well. And so it's nice that, the same author has done both of those things. They had something that was definitely like good enough.
Right.
But,
Right.
because there's so much really sort of like almost transcendently good stuff that can really stick in your head and leave you thinking and stuff.
And then if you find that right books, like the really good book at the right moment in your life, then it's totally like there's that what's synchronicity? Not synchronicity. The serendipity of finding it at the right moment makes it that much better, and those are the kind of things that stick with you forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lacey.
Somebody Smith says, "Do you guys?" This doesn't seem like a person because this was on our recap. I might be wrong, and I might be profiling them, but this doesn't seem like a person who would necessarily watch this part of this video for this information.
Except we made a transition recently. So all right, so ask the question first.
But they say, "Do you guys know what the next Survivor gear set rewards are?"
So the interesting thing is, we stopped talking about it in our weekly recap because each account potentially can start on a different Survivor reward, and then you go through the same cycle.
You think this person wants to know it so bad that they're just watching all of our videos on the off chance that we mention it?
No, I think they don't know. I think because we don't mention it, and even if they watch the rest of the video, this is a question that they think, oh, why are they not dealing with it? Because they've only found us recently. Yeah. So you think that this is a potential conversion? You think I've just maligned them, and now they're going to watch this and say, screw you guys. Yeah. Now I'm not going to watch it anymore. The problem is it starts off potentially different for every account. There are 4 different Survivor gear set rewards
in a cycle,
and everybody goes through the same cycle in the same order, but not always at the same time. Each thing lasts for 2 weeks. The one cycle that you get by default if you open the game but you are not connected to the internet is Suicide Squad companion gears. Yeah. And if that happens to be what you are getting while you're connected to the internet, what happens next is 4th World gear set, then LexCorp gears, and then League of Assassins, and then right back to Suicide Squad. So it goes in that order for everybody, 2 weeks each. And at least it has for a number of years now. There was one point on Android, I think it was maybe like about a year, where it was stuck on Suicide Squad companion gears.
For an exceptional amount of time.
For a ridiculous amount of time. You couldn't get the other gears anywhere else. We were lucky enough at that point that we'd already gotten all the rewards that we needed from it, but I could feel the frustration from Android players because we've said before, the gears are probably the most important thing if you're going to be playing the game and being successful, because you can make almost any character good enough with the right gears. So you don't need all the challenge characters. It's nice to have them. They're a lot of fun to play with, but you don't need all of them, and you don't need all the challenges either, as long as you've got the right gears.
Yeah. There we go.
So actually, we can't answer their question because they didn't tell us what their current gears were.
But we did. We can't answer their question specifically, but we gave them the tools to answer the question themselves very easily.
Exactly. So order is Suicide Squad, 4th World gear set, LexCorp gear set, League of Assassins gear set.
And League of Assassins leads back into Suicide Squad. Right. So whichever one you're at now, the one that we said immediately after that is the one that you're going to get.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So our next question comes from Lao Jiahe. It's Laujiahe. As always, feel free to correct my pronunciation. I'm sure I'm wrong. But they say, may I know why my free recharge button is not working? I have got the latest update, but the free recharge button just gray out. Hope you can help.
We can't help, but I think I've got an explanation.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of those, excuse me, got to tickle my throat. It's one of those things that have to do with the location.
Yeah.
And potentially what you've done already. Because it keeps track. If you've done it, if you use it once, it doesn't give it back to you right away. And I think the other thing is that, excuse me, because it's tied into what ads are available to you.
Yeah.
If your whatever identifier, I think I can't remember what the term was for your phone, is not triggering the availability of ads, then you don't get that button. And that can be, I think that same sort of what's the word? I'm struggling with this. I don't know what the word is. Like whatever ID on your phone that the ad sort of the advertisers, I guess, are using.
I have no clue.
They might decide that in your area currently there's no nobody paying for an ad to show up in Injustice, so they won't give you that button.
Okay.
So you can't do anything about it unless, well, maybe that's not exactly the right answer. I think there was a way that you could reset it on Android at least, where you could sort of delete your identification as far as it comes to ads, and that could potentially give you the free recharge button again.
So is that something that's more on your phone more broadly, or is that something that's specifically like in the Injustice code?
I think it's broadly for any kind of games that are integrated with advertising.
So it'd be like associated with the Google Play Store, maybe?
I think so, because you know how there's some apps where it shows you ads?
Yeah.
They're targeted.
Yeah.
And it really does have to do with
I know there's
stuff that's out of your control.
There's a couple of ecosystems, right? There's AdSense, which is Google's, and that's like a significant percentage of the internet. And then there's the Facebook ad serving, which is also a significant market share. You'd think that was just Facebook, but there's a bunch of partner companies that work with Facebook to have Facebook serve you ads.
Right.
And then I think those are the two big ones. I'm not sure if there's like a third major one that I'm not thinking about. And then for mobile games, though, I don't know. A lot of them seem to just serve you ads for other mobile games and like really sort of unrelated stuff.
Right.
I will say, what's funny is my ads have been permanently sullied.
What did you do?
So, see, you're making it sound like it's going to be bad, but what I'll say is I took the MCAT once.
Okay.
Right? And ever since then, my ads have been like, you can go to this medical school in the Caribbean. You can go here. You can go wherever. And I believe that when you sign up for the MCAT, they explicitly tell you that they're allowed to share this information with like prospective schools.
Oh, you think they sold it?
I think they sold it to schools. I think they sell the list of MCAT participants. I think that information is available to accredited medical schools.
Interesting.
And so specifically my YouTube ads are like miserable every time. Before the summer, I get like 1 million ads for Kaplan, which is a MCAT test prep thing. And then year round, my ads, especially on YouTube, my Google AdSense is absolutely bombarded by it's like the Western American medical school or whatever somewhere in the Mediterranean, whatever. But I think it's called WASUM, WASUM. And I remember I was on a call with somebody and I was telling them about this, and I said, I will bet you money that I can tell you that any YouTube video I open, regardless of the topic, is going to have an ad from this med school. It's going to be the same ad. And the problem is that there's one ad that they use. It's the same ad about how they value their students and their community and whatever. And so like I know I see their faces more than I see the faces of my friends in real life. Because every time I open a YouTube video, they're there telling me about how the school values stuff. And then there's also another ad that I get about like an anatomy department that uses like a mix of like VR tech and like models and whatever. And I'm like, oh, you can get your hands on. And it's interesting because I don't currently I don't have a plan to go to those med schools at all. I don't currently have a plan to go to any med schools.
Right.
Right. You know, you never know what the future will hold. But at the current moment, this advertising is not effective, and so it's kind of miserable because it's the same ad over and over.
You want to see better ads?
But it's happened. Yeah. Sometimes if there's a new video game coming out that might be cool, it might be nice to like see an ad for something that I might actually want to like have on my radar.
Right.
But then at the same time, is I've seen the ad so many times that it instantly removes itself from my brain the second I see it. It's not new content. It can't worm its way any deeper into my psyche. Right. So it's essentially...
It's wormed enough. I mean, you're talking about it now.
But what I'm saying is it's essentially no content. And what it means is that I'm not getting any ads, basically. I'm getting 5 seconds of annoyance. Or I'm getting 5 seconds of something that gets instantly, like, Men in Black style mind wiped from me. Right? The second it's over. So it's like, it's both a blessing and a curse. Because I'm never going to make a purchase ever again for the rest of my natural life based off of an ad I'm served. Because this med school wants me to go there so bad. They want me to go. They want me so bad, and they're throwing money at me. I'm sure I've seen it enough times. We talk about how, you know, you need like 1,000 ad views to like make us like a buck or a couple bucks.
Yes.
I'm sure
1,000 to make a buck. 1,000 to make a buck. Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure at this point they have spent like $1 advertising
on you.
They have spent, and I assume that these ads are worth more than average because they want you to enroll in their med school. They want you to give them a lot of money. And
see, I'm not convinced that it's worth a lot of money.
You don't think it's worth any more? You think it's worth like the same amount?
I think they just sell the ads.
But I think if they get you, I think the value of that conversion, because you think about like the cost benefit, right? And it's the cost of serving you the ad versus how much money they make off of a 1 unit sale.
I think the thing is that with that, their 1 unit sale is worth so much more, so they can afford to just spend as many ads as you want. So that 1,000 is cheap. They could do that as orders of magnitude bigger, and they for they're targeting one person here. They need to target, if they target 100 people, 200 people, and they only get one conversion, tuition's got to be through the roof.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is they sent brochures and stuff to our house. They're really thirsty for it. They want it too bad. And what I'll say is that makes them less appealing as an option to me. Because you know who doesn't advertise to me? You know who doesn't care if I get there? You know who actually has sort of this perception of, even if you want to get in, we probably won't let you in? Most prestigious medical schools.
Yes.
Right? Most of the schools that if somebody says, oh, where would you want to go to med school if you're going to med school, have not tried to reach out to me at all. I am not on their radar. I am a bug. I am a bug to them. I am an insect. They do not think about me. They do not care about me.
What you're saying is playing hard to get works.
What I'm saying is the places that don't need to fish for you are the places that are better to be. So what I'm saying is they seem a little desperate, because the other thing in their promotional materials is they go, we will give you your first semester free. If you complete your degree here, we will wipe the first semester off your tuition.
It's like a drug dealer. First one's on me. First one's free.
Yeah, we're not just going to give it to you. It's like your first year is free or something like that, or first semester. Right. And so I'm like, man, you guys want it too bad. You want it too much.
Yeah, it's something. What's wrong with you?
I go, and I know what's wrong with you is that you're accredited in the Caribbean, and people don't want to go to you as much because nobody's ever heard of you. The only reason I know about you is because every time I open YouTube and click on a video, your name is emboldened. Yeah. Your name is being flashed onto my retinas.
Yeah.
24 frames a second. And so what I'll say is, but I guess if I didn't have any other options, if I really wanted to go to med school, if that's the only thing I wanted to do, and nobody else wanted me, I'd be like, these guys are here, and I've heard about them 1,000 times. Again, they're familiar to me now.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, they're exceptionally familiar to me now.
Yeah,
because.
So they have name recognition, is what you're saying.
They have name recognition, but they make me a little mad every time I'm forced to think about them and consider them in more of that passive, it's only 5 seconds. The one thing I'll say that's good is that they're the type of ad that you can skip after 5 seconds.
Yeah.
If I had to watch that ad, if it was one of the 30-second unskippable ones, I would stop using YouTube. I would use an ad blocker on YouTube. I would become the thing I swore to destroy. I would be taking food out of YouTubers' mouths. Because in general, I'm like, I want to support a content creator.
So I wonder if people see that ad on our videos.
If anybody sees it, I'm sorry. If anybody sees that ad on our videos, you have permission just for us and our channel only to specifically turn on ad blocker. And I'll say that more broadly. If you, for some reason, have found yourself in some niche market where you are only getting one type of ad now and it makes you angry, I give you my official seal of approval to use ad blocker on a channel for that. And that's the other reason why I think that it has to at least be worth more than the average ad, is because the way that it works is when you, for AdSense specifically, when a user goes on a video, there's like a mini instant auction that takes place, right? Where YouTube looks at the average amount of money that they make from serving somebody an ad, and they pick based off of the demographic. Each advertiser bot bids for it, and it is actually a bidding system, because the idea is that they will offer up to a certain amount, but YouTube will accept basically what they think is the lowest amount that's a good deal. So it does work like an instant bid. So people can pay less for ads than they're willing to pay for ads sometimes. That's how it works too. And so
you're saying that because they show up so often, they
it
must
means
be
they're
bidding
always
higher.
outbidding.
Right.
Whatever YouTube and Google AdSense knows about me, this is the most valuable thing that they can serve to me, because this is all that they give me. I get weird ads, but this is the ad that I'm served almost always, and so you have to assume that it's worth more.
Okay.
Anyways, that's my rant about my terrible the thing that's following me, and it's followed me for long. I thought it was just gonna be months. It's been like more than a year at this point.
You need to give them something else to follow. You
Yeah.
need to give them more information about you that has nothing to do with taking the
I need to
test.
figure out something really incredibly specific that is worth a lot of money.
I'll tell you, my YouTube experience is not nearly as bad as yours.
I'm watching a lot of great content. It's worth it. It's just annoying, man.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
sick of it.
And on that note,
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end.
I'm just Anyways, I'd like to give a shout out to Eliza the Stink Caton. There's an aroma about her. And
What?
I want to be clear. I'm sure this isn't true. I just thought it might be funny to say. I said it. This is not based off of any actual smells.
So is this one of those, haha, it's a joke that you decide, or no, you're already deciding it's a joke, because it sounds more like one of those Schrodinger's.
No, this is, I want to be clear, this is libel and slander. I haven't seen her in person in so long, even if she did stink. I'm not saying she doesn't. I'm not saying there's no smell. I'm saying I don't have that information.
I don't even understand. I'm just going to, okay, moving right along.
This shout out was brought to you by the upcoming libel suit I assume I'm about to be served. Anyways, we'd also like to, if you're using an ad blocker in our videos right now, no, I don't really know how to segue this, but we have some lovely folks.
We're going to give you ads that are embedded in our videos.
Yeah.
And these ads are for our patrons on Patreon.
Try to escape this, you dick.
Yeah.
What? I don't know.
All right, so a big thank you. There's nothing to escape. This is a big thank you to Korey Ashcraft, who's supporting us on the Last Word tier. Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi 127, and Drew Chapman, who are supporting us on the credited level. And then you can still see a few other names of all the people who were kind enough and generous enough to support us during the pandemic.
Yeah, and if your name isn't on there, it could be. If you toss us a couple bucks on Patreon, if you feel like it.
Yeah.
Or not. You don't have to. It's free content.
Very good.
Anyways, so thank you so much for your support. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.